Now, here's the hosts of Top Story, Kelly Klass and Jill Steen.
Well, good morning and welcome to Top Story. 7360300 is always the number to call. And good morning, Jill.
Good morning, Kelly.
I think I've pushed all the buttons and thrown all the levers and everything. I think we're ready to go.
You got the delay on because, you might need it. You might need it with me.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
I always need it.
I wish we had a little button that was like, beep, beep, like.
Yeah, I know. Well, maybe we'll have to hook one up.
Oh, maybe the new person will have to. You're on your way out. You're in the twilight of the show. Who are you kidding? You're like, you don't care anymore. You've reached the point
I do too care.
You reached the point of, you're like the horse to the barn. How fast can we go?
Anyway, good morning.
I will miss you. And I hear that all the time. I've run into people all the time. Who's going to replace Kelly? It's like, it's just impossible. It's just impossible. And then fear strikes their eyes that it might just be me. I go, no worries. There will always be another co-host. It's a Fox News affiliate. So anyway. Oh my God, it can't just be you. No, it won't be. Rest assured, people, it's not just me.
You're on a roll today, Jill. Just keep it going.
I'm just saying. That's what I'm hearing around town.
Oh,
Panic is reaching out that I might have my own show. Are you kidding me? Anyway.
Oh, my. Okay,
Happy Monday.
Yes, indeed.
You started it with the buttons.
I know. I'm sorry. Well, actually, you're the one who said we need a beep button.
Yeah.
So you're the
Which
one
would be kind of fun. And then you were kind of like,
I can always go, something
That's
like that.
That's not as fun.
Coming up at 8:30, we have Maya Goodman. She'll be talking about Judge Janine Pirro, who will be coming to this area this Friday.
Nancy Pirro?
How come it says Janine? No, that's wrong. That was my...
That was yours, so the calendar's wrong?
I was thinking of somebody else, yeah.
Okay, so you're right with Janine.
Judge Janine Pirro,
Okay, that's all I've seen. I haven't seen anything else, so
okay. So, and then at 8:40, we have Randy Staples with the Idaho Political Update. Then at 9 o'clock, we have Mark Doerr with the Idaho Fish and Game Commission. So if you have any questions or comments about Idaho Fish and Game, that would be the time.
This is the time.
That's right. Well, how about that Peyton Manning, huh?
How about that Peyton Manning? I was saying to Tom, he threw for 509?
Yep, 509.
But the thing of it is I'm wondering if Indianapolis regrets letting him go. I know he probably was sad leaving, but you think you end your career there, but he's still got life in that dog. That's for sure.
Looks like it, yeah.
So anyway,
509 career passing touchdowns for those who don't follow football like me.
Yeah, he beat Brett Favre's mark of 508 on the all-time list.
My wife was pretty excited. She's a Denver fan.
Yeah.
And she was watching the game, and I was actually sitting there watching it with her.
But were you really watching it, or were you thinking of something else?
Well, probably.
I'm sure.
Whatever.
I know.
And then,
you are a man.
Well, but I'm just not into football.
I know.
I'm sorry. I don't know what to say about that.
I know. Anyway, that's exciting for him. And, when you think he was going to almost lose his career with his neck injury and he had neck surgery. So I say kudos to Peyton. And I don't know how you can't like Peyton. I mean, he has such a great personality. When he's ever hosted on Saturday Night Live, he's really quite funny. He's a funny guy, and he's a great quarterback. And
he has a lot of endorsements because I see him on a lot of commercials.
Yeah.
He must be raking in the dough.
They all do.
Wow.
The stellar ones, But anyway, kudos to him. Way to go.
The first wave of people who had contact with the original Dallas Ebola patient were taken off the watch list early today.
You know what? I was so worried about those people. They were stuck in that apartment for 4 days with his waste and refuse, and
they didn't
it's a miracle
get it.
They didn't get it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I think
that should make people rest assured.
I think we have been overreacting a little bit.
You think?
I was out at the airport Saturday, and there were a couple of people out there kind of lamenting the fact that there was a person through there earlier in the week from West Africa.
Oh, jeez.
And they were concerned about that.
West Africa has a lot of countries, not just those
I know.
three.
I understand that. But looking at what has happened and how this thing, we haven't had any new cases now. I know there have been a lot of people concerned, and frankly, I was concerned too. I was kind of waiting and seeing what was going to happen here. Was this thing just going to explode? But it looks like it's subsiding a bit.
Well,
That's not to say that it might not start up again.
If anyone was going to get it, you would think it would have been his immediate family, and that was trapped in that apartment.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the bellwether of this whole thing. If the family living right there in the apartment with Mr. Duncan did not get it.
Yeah. I mean, they say it has to be contact with bodily fluids, and I think we have gone to the hysteria part. And for people to say we have to stop the flights into the U.S. from Liberia and those countries, there are no direct flights. They go into the U.S. and they go through other countries. And, people keep insisting there's flights from there directly into the U.S. There aren't. But the lady on the cruise ship, I mean, she was on her 19th day. She handled the sample in a test tube. Yeah. And they couldn't land. I mean, the Carnival cruise, they're trying to stop at different countries. I think they stopped in Belize. They stopped,
Mexico.
I forget. Yeah, the other kind. They're not letting them off. I mean, she's quarantined on a cruise. You're just like, I think people have gone to the point of hysteria. Now they're going to just, scrub the thing down. Fine. But oh, how mad would you be if you were on that cruise?
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking, too. First of all, being on that cruise with her, and secondly, being her on the cruise. Probably what happened is she probably paid for it in advance.
Well, of course.
And I don't think you can get your money back.
Maybe if you called up and said, I might have been exposed to Ebola. Would you like to give me my money back, please?
Or shall I just come on anyway?
It's your call.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me. Up to you.
But I think the CDC contacted Carnival Cruise Lines. That's nice. But, I mean, she wasn't symptomatic. She was on her 18th day. They say if you're on your 21 days. And so, but yeah, the cruise ship, they really can stop many places.
Yeah. So first of all, she spent that money and then had to spend the whole time in the cabin. Secondly, the people who were on that cruise ship with her spent the money.
Had diversions.
And and then they couldn't stop at probably some of the places they were going to stop.
They wouldn't let
it'll be
people
interesting
off.
to see how Carnival Cruise handles that.
Well, they've had to practice with this, with things and
urine
running down the walls.
Well,
I mean, they have some practice at this.
But it'll be interesting to see if they offer any kind of a rebate to the
How mad would you be as other passengers? Anyway,
736-0300. Top story. You're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Kelly and Jill.
Good
Kyle,
morning.
where have you been? We haven't heard from you in a while.
Harvest. 14-hour days, 6 days a week, you know how they.
Oh, man, that's nothing, man. What do you do with all your free time?
You must still listen.
Anyway, Jill, I hope they find somebody opposite you that will call you on stuff, but yet do it tactfully and nicely, because you are a good person.
Well, thanks, Kyle. I appreciate that.
As far as the Ebola thing and people being maybe overboard, I love the old saying my mom used to have. It's called better safe than sorry.
Well,
better safe than sorry.
It's fine, but I think it's gone a little cuckoo.
I think.
Whoa.
Whoop. Okay. I think we were safe at the beginning, or at least trying to be. I know there were some dropped balls there early on.
Yeah.
And I think that might be kind of what caused the issue that we had. Had those balls not been dropped, then we might not even have had this big of an issue with it.
Well, no. I mean, they would have contained it.
My state of mind was, well, I'm going to watch this and see what happens.
Yeah.
And CDC didn't seem to know what they were doing. The Presbyterian Hospital, I don't know, they didn't seem to. Nobody really everybody was kind of going on their own. And even with all of the mistakes that were made, we still don't have any new cases of it right now.
Well, if you were going to have some new cases, it would have been his immediate family. I mean, I'm sorry. They were stuck in that apartment for 4 days with his refuse and stuff, and then they moved him out. But if you were going to have cases, I was so worried for them. I think there were 5 kids involved. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I can't even imagine being quarantined for 21 days stuck in somewhere.
Oh,
Could
I
you?
know. No, I
No
can't.
fresh
I can't
air. I don't
imagine
even know
that.
how you would eat. I mean, who's delivering food? How can you go to the grocery store? How do you pay your bills? How do you cash your check?
Online.
What if it's not direct deposit? What if it's your mail? I mean, there's so much I think about. I'm like, my gosh. And now poor little, the nurse's little dog, was it Bentley? Little Bentley. He's still
Yeah.
in quarantine till
Oh, poor
November
Bentley.
4th. Have you seen him? He's so cute.
Yes.
And these people in these blue things are feeding him. He's just looking at him like, what? And where's my mommy? Like, they don't even know if an animal can get Ebola.
Yeah.
So poor, I think it's gone a little overboard, and I'm just relieved the immediate family
Well,
didn't get it.
I can't sit here and say that they've gone overboard. I think everyone was being as careful as they could be given the circumstances. And I think we're starting to learn that even as careful as we were, and even with the dropped balls, no more of an issue than this has been, that maybe it's not as serious as we thought.
I just think, and also some of the common sense, like he could have said, I think I have Ebola, and he could have been in the hospital too. When they sent him home,
Right.
when
That was
they
one of the
sent
dropped
him
balls.
home, is it part of denial? Like you're thinking, okay, good, they don't think I have Ebola? Is it because I would have insisted, like, I think I have Ebola, and I could actually be saved if they found it soon enough.
Yeah,
I don't. Anyway.
7360300. Top story. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kelly. Good morning, lovely Jill.
Good morning.
I was talking to my nephew who does internal medicine in Galveston, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying, I go, who do you think the fault is, the CDC or the people? And he says, you know what? Nobody here in the U.S. is well-traveled, and they don't have, like, a disease. Somebody is special in diseases from other countries, so they don't know what to look for. They don't train the people. There's diseases all over the world. And it's like and he says, when I went to school, they never even talked about Ebola and stuff like that. But, I think it's the first step to get people in all the hospitals and just get them acquainted with the diseases that are all over the world, not just here in the U.S.
Yeah.
And if we think we're not vulnerable, look at just what happened. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think with the more mobile population that we have in this world now, we're going to have to. We can't just depend on the width of the oceans anymore to keep us safe from a lot of this stuff. So
I'll tell you one thing: they're all going to be trained in it. So
I wouldn't be surprised if, And now with the onslaught of the flu, there's going to be a lot of people probably thinking, "Oh my gosh, I've got a temperature. I must have Ebola." So now they're.
Although I've never been around
getting ready
anyone
for
from
that.
West Africa, but I'm sure I haven't.
We'll be right back here on Top Story. Welcome back. 7360300 is the number to call here this morning on Top Story. And you know that the irrigation season is kind of starting to close down for the winter time now. But this spring we'll be back up and running again. And you want to talk to Far More of Idaho about infrared barren. How they can fly over your fields with infrared photography. They take these pictures, upload them to your computer. You can then analyze them and see just how your watering apparatus is doing. And you might decide that you need to make some changes. And when you do that, you might find that your yield increases way more than paying you back for the cost of these overflights. So this infrared barren doesn't cost. It pays. Ask them about it at Far More of Idaho at 324-3341 or at farmoreofidaho.com.
Well, just when you thought the Filer dog shooting has gone away, it's you know what? I'm amazed. They still haven't settled with this man. And for anyone who was under a rock at that time, Rick Clubb, his dog Hooch, was shot to death by Filer police officer Tariq Hassani in February. He was I still can't believe it. Seriously, I can't believe it. Anyway, the guy...
Well, they had 90 days. They filed apparently a tort claim, and so the city had 90 days to respond, and that was up in October.
I still can't believe, that the guy shot the dog. So anyway,
okay.
He shot the dog while they were having a birthday party for his son inside the house, and basically pounded on the door, I think cursed at the man, and said, I had to shoot your dog. And so they haven't settled with him yet, which I think they probably should. They had 90 days, so what's happened at that point, I don't know. Club is seeking $150,000 in damages plus court costs.
It's probably going to go to a jury trial. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not an attorney. I don't know
I would think $150,000 is a bargain at this point, because if it went to a jury trial,
I don't know. Look at it this way, because they were all hot and heavy. They were going to get all these signatures, and they were going to get the city council
they're
recalled.
going to recall the mayor and the city call.
And that thing fell flat. So maybe the city officials in FIDA are looking at this thing thinking maybe there aren't as many people against us on this deal as we thought, and maybe they're thinking it would be better to go to a jury.
Why did it fall flat? Did they just not knock on enough doors? I mean, I would have been on every single door. I think it was outrageous. I think it was outrageous that they kept the officer on the payroll, since almost the entire community said they lost faith in him. They've had stories of being terrorized by him. I was just like, and if he does something else again, are you kidding me? The city of Filer wouldn't be liable to how much? My gosh, knowing that this man has had a few incidences, like, why not just settle with the officer, let him go? But anyway, this has come up again, and I think if it went to a jury trial, if I was on that jury, oh my.
Sure, I know. And
seeing the video and the dog.
And that's always, and believe me, I don't know if this can go to a jury trial. I don't know. I'm not an attorney, so I don't know what the ramifications are, how they do this or that or the other thing. But I'm just saying that if they waited they probably waited the 90 days because they had that time to come up with some sort of a settlement, and they didn't do it. So now they can file suit. Mm-hmm. And then it can go to either a judge or a jury, I suppose. And so maybe they're thinking that their chances are better if they go that way. And you know what? Quite frankly, they might be.
Well, also, they did a public information request, and the Filer Police Chief Tim Reeves apparently refused to turn over any public information that was named in the lawsuit. They asked for the video along with 9 other related items, and they didn't turn anything over. So I'm thinking, why would Filer do something to make this right? Why are you keep hiding? It's so frustrating to me that if you have public information, you're public officials and you're paid by the taxpayers, turn stuff over. And this man was definitely harmed. If someone shot my dog, and I saw that video, and I know dogs, and I am sorry. I know the officer was cleared for any wrongdoing, but they still said he could have done other things not to shoot that dog. I don't know. Just pay the guy, get it over with, settle with the man, let him move on with his life. He's now back on medication. He's lost his, because they did say for him it was a service dog. It helped him.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't say that I disagree with you. I'm just bringing out the points that looking at it from the city's point of view, they might think that maybe they've got a better chance of surviving this than they thought.
Do they have a PR person in Filer? Like, could someone actually, you know what I mean? It's like Larry Craig. Just pay the money and go on. Move on. Don't fight it. It gets more press, which reminds me, it brings me up to a thing that's being fought right now. It's going to be fought at 9 o'clock in Boise. Dr. Edith Santo had, requested information about that threatening email that she received.
Right.
And the person sent it was impersonating former Jerry Beck, which CSI is not looking into and is basically fighting, along with Barnes & Noble, to produce that information. Why?
I don't know.
Why?
I don't know.
You have enough bad publicity. Why are you fighting something?
Why would you not want to get to the bottom of this?
Why would you not? If someone was threatening your employee, and she was an employee at the time, no less a vice president, no less impersonating your former president, you're fighting the information to see who did that? Why? Unless they know who did it and it's close to home.
I'll tell you what it appears to me, and I'm just going to use 4 words: good old boys club.
Yep.
That's all I can think of. 736-0300 is the number to call. We will be right back. 736-0300 is the number to call here this morning on Top Story. Welcome back. Before we get to Maya Goodman telling us about an event coming up with Judge Janine Pirro from Fox News, I just wanted to tell you that the folks at Canyon Pond would love for you to stop by today and take a look and see what they got. Of course, all kinds of guns. And it's a nice, clean store. It's a new store.
It's a new store.
It's a new store. That's right. It is the newest pawn shop in Twin Falls. So if you got stuff to pawn, they're looking for that. If you got stuff you need to buy, then why not try them first? If you're looking for guns, because we're right in the middle now of hunting season. If you're looking for another gun or something, or a gun, give them a try there at Canyon Pawn. They got all sorts of them. They got camping supplies and fishing supply. You can still fish. And they got fishing poles in there.
You can still fit, and we've had amazing weather.
So if you're like me and not a very good fisherman, you might want to consider an experienced fishing pole from Canyon Pond instead of a brand new one at one of those box stores.
It's all about the pole.
That's right. You can get an experienced fishing pole at Canyon Pond, and they are on Shoshone Street, right across from Will's Toyota.
That's right.
And they'd love to have you come in and say hi. Maya Goodman is with us this morning, and there is an event coming up that Maya is going to tell us about with Judge Janine Pirro from Fox News. Good morning, Maya.
Good morning, Maya.
Good morning. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Jill.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good. A little frazzled, but good.
Don't be frazzled. Nobody listens anyway.
So what's going on? How did you get Judge Janine Pirro?
Well, in the past we brought several big-name speakers into town. And
what organization is this, just for those who just tuned in?
Well, it's our annual Boots and Diamonds Fall Harvest Party, but it is underwritten by the Southern Idaho Republican Women.
Okay, all right.
And so we're bringing in the famous and opinionated Judge Janine Pirro from Fox News. She appears on Saturdays and Sundays, and she's very opinionated. Most people that are loyal followers will know her for her seasoned opinions, and she has gone viral many, many times when she does her opening statement.
Yeah. Interesting lady.
So when is your event, Maya?
It is this coming Friday night, October 24th. The doors will open at 7 o'clock, but they're having a cocktail party from 6 to 7 for the general public. Our VIPs will be able to go in at 4:30 and mingle with her for an hour as well.
Where's it going to be?
Canyon Crest Event Center.
All right.
And how much are tickets?
Tickets are $65 for general seating. Our VIPs can come. It sounds expensive. It's $100, but they'll get to spend an hour and a half with her. She'll do book signings, and there will be picture opportunities there. So it's more of a one-on-one type thing with her. So that starts at 4:30 to 6, and then from 6 to 7, there will be a cocktail hour for our general seating.
And then is there dinner, or what's after that?
Then at 7, dinner, and she'll speak at 7 o'clock.
All right, very cool. Now, where can they get tickets?
They can visit our website, www.bootsanddiamonds.net, or they can call me at 208-420-6954, and I can lead them in the right direction.
All right, very good. So who would want to come and see Janine? What do you think they'll learn?
Well, I think, we also have tickets for our students. I might want to throw that in. College students can come for $30. That basically covers their meal and listening to Judge Janine. We do have some scholarships available for students as well. So if they just can't manage that, I know budgets are tight when you're going to school, call me and we'll make special arrangements for some of our students. We have about 3 to 4 tickets available for students. And then also, I'd like to also throw out, Kelly, that we had a very generous member purchase a table for our veterans. So we have 6 available tickets for their spouses and a veteran. So they would need to call me as well, and we will give them a seat up front to watch her. So really, our legal eagles out there, teachers, anybody interested in freedom. She's a constitutionalist. She's very well seasoned in, politics and preventing the takeover of communism basically in our country. So I think it would appeal to anyone that just loves her, that loves someone that's down to earth, opinionated, tells it like it is. She has so much information on what's going on right now. She's covering ISIS. She's covering Obama in the White House. She's very well schooled and trained in legal analytics. So.
We're just about out of time, so give us your number, a good number to contact for more information on this, Maya.
Okay, 208-420-6954. That's for Maya. And then www.bootsanddiamonds.net.
All right, very good. Maya, thank you very much. Sounds like a fun event.
Good luck.
It will be. Thank you, you guys. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Kelly.
All righty. This is Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX. We have Randy Staples next with the Idaho Political Update. 736-0300, always the number to call here on Top Story. Welcome back, and we have Randy Staples with us from Reidenbaugh Press with his Idaho Political Update. Good morning, Randy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are things going in your neck of the woods today?
Oh, pretty good. It's people are talking a little bit about politics as they are all over the place.
Well, I noticed we're finally starting to get some polls now, it looks like.
And we're actually getting
Idaho's not polled a lot.
Yeah.
Generally, because the states that tend to get polled a little bit more are those where more of the races traditionally are a little bit closer and the parties are a little bit more closely matched.
Yeah.
But Idaho gets a few of them. We've gotten a few up to this point, and one that got some pretty good attention last week.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll talk about that here in a second. But first, I wanted you to explain the HJR2 and why it is or is not that important.
And for people who don't know what it is, it's not a virus.
I got a request from somebody who reads the column about that, and said, would you explain what just what the heck this thing is?
Yeah.
So I pretty much did, or at least as far as I can see. What it does is say that the legislature can review and accept or reject state administrative rules and regulations. Like an example would be the Department of Health and Welfare does a rule related to health, and that goes out there, and it has the effect of law. It's significant, but a lot of people don't really know about it that much. People who hunt and fish know about the Fish and Game rules, for example. There's there are whole booklets of those, and those are not in state law. That's what the department does within the context of the state law as part of what it does.
So why do we need this? I mean, why now?
Sorry?
Why do they want this constitutional change now? I mean, they said they've been doing this for years, and I just had to wonder why now, and it made me question, like, something has to be up. Honestly, I voted Friday and I voted against it because I'm like, what's up with this? Because it didn't make sense in the ballot. It's not a good explanation. What is the benefit of this?
There's not really much of an explanation, because you're exactly right. They have been doing it for years. I mean, in the years that we've been talking about the legislature during legislative season, the first 3 or 4 weeks of the session, you've heard me say every year for years now that, well, they're spending a lot of time going over the rules and regulations.
Yeah.
And generally they do very little with them. In a typical session, maybe 1 or 2 is thrown out and maybe something's amended, but there's generally very little that's actually done with them. But they've been doing the same thing that they say they want authority for years, for as long as I've been following them, since the mid-'70s, and probably a lot longer than that.
So why do you think the need is to have a constitutional change on this?
Well, I don't think they do need it.
I know. Okay.
There have been a couple of challenges to the courts, but the courts have upheld the legislature. So it's not as though this is something that they want to do and haven't been able to. This is something that they've already been doing for a very long time, and there's been no successful challenge to it.
And I think the sponsor of it, was quoted as saying this is the most important bill that we could, in his lifetime. And I'm thinking, what?
Yeah.
What's that all about?
And my thought of that is that if that's the most important bill that he's been involved with, then I wouldn't say a whole lot about his legislative career.
I know.
So whether we vote for it or against it, it almost so what? Let's say we voted against it. Does that mean what they've been doing can't be done then?
No.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. That would not change anything. We would be exactly where we are, which is they continue to do it. I've heard a couple of arguments on why they want to do it. One is a little bit it's maybe a little bit concerning in that the idea that they're trying to reach ever further into executive branch prerogatives and trying to run the executive branches more thoroughly. That they have the interest of doing even more in this area than they already have been. I'm not so sure that they necessarily can or would, because it's already taking up about a quarter of the legislative session. That's time that ordinarily they might be spending starting to get informed on issues, working on bills and things like that, but they don't really have the time for that now.
Yeah. Well, and it also made me wonder if this isn't any more important than that, and this is the only other issue they have on the ballot like that. Maybe they just figured they had to have one, so they picked this one.
So it looks good.
Yeah, so it looks good.
I think somebody at the legislature was afraid that somehow or another there was going to be another challenge, and maybe they might eventually lose the authority. But there's no real reason for thinking that.
Okay.
Particularly as long as you have both branches of government, the executive and the legislative, both under Republican control.
Yeah.
And it was kind of interesting that where the really intensive review of the rules, where they started spending weeks just focusing on that, where that started was when Phil Batt became governor, and you had that kind of unified control.
Interesting stuff. Let's
Alrighty
get on to the public opinion polls. Let's start with Otter versus Belukov. There is not. Let me put it this way: if I were Otter, I would be a little concerned.
Well, there was a poll that came out last week, and that's the most recent one. So, you always look at the most recent poll as opposed to older ones.
Right.
And that one showed Otter at 39% and Balakov at 35%. And the first thing that hits me about that is not so much the close numbers there, is the fact that leaves a whole lot of other voters unaccounted for.
Mm-hmm.
And this poll seems to indicate that some of the other candidates, maybe John Bujak for one, the Libertarian, might score a large number, but in fact, the polling almost always overestimates, and this is true nationally, polling almost always overestimates what minor or third-party candidates will wind up getting actually in November. Almost all the voters wind up, in the end, voting for either a Republican or a Democrat.
Well, they have 6 people on the ballot under governor, isn't it? There was
it's a pretty substantial
1, 2, 3, 4,
number.
5, yeah, 6.
And so when I see 39 and 35%, that leaves that's just 74%. That leaves about more than a quarter of the voters presumably unaccounted for.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems kind of high to me. And earlier polls that showed Otter with a larger lead showed somewhat smaller, kind of unaccounted for numbers.
Well, don't you think they are worried, since the RGA just donated $100,000 to his campaign this late in the season? They have to be worried, and it is getting some national play. I've heard people talk like they're surprised that it's as close as it is for Idaho. So I'm wondering if they really are worried.
There is that. That's one thing that's good to watch in terms of what sort of the experts really think, as where are they putting their money?
Yeah.
And when you look at the Republican or the Democratic national organizations deciding that they're putting money into a given race,
right?
Whatever they may say about the race, and of course they're always going to say whatever they think will be advantageous to them. But when you see where they're putting their money, then that's somewhat serious. I'm waiting to see whether the Democrats put their money in behind Balakov at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know. He has a lot of money on his own, so maybe they won't.
He has money on his own. He's been putting a good deal of it in there.
Yeah, he does. Wow.
So do you think this issue that has come up with the CCA prison agreement and the broadband contract and those two controversies in particular. Do you think those will have a big influence over the governor's race?
Well, the thing about cases like that is that the big difference that I always look for is whether it seems to be kind of a standalone thing or whether it's part of a pattern. If it's part of a pattern and it becomes a story of this is somebody who's just prone to problems like this, then I think voters start to take it a little bit more seriously. If you've got a pattern of these things, as opposed to, kind of a one-off glitch that might be explained as, well, everybody can make a mistake.
But remember when it first came up, Otter wasn't going to even look into it when they found out they were overcharging, and you have to wonder why. And then when I saw how much they donated to his campaign, I'm thinking maybe that's why.
Yeah, it was over a year before the investigation actually happened.
Right.
So, so that's, I think that, first of all, they are serious things. They are clearly serious, criticisms and problems, and there's something that can't be shrugged off as just being minor. And there are getting to be enough of them when you look at all of these things put together that they become a little bit harder for Otter to just shrug off. Mm-hmm. And I suspect that when if he wins, which I imagine that he probably will, that his percentage will not be all that spectacular. And it wasn't the last couple of times either. Yeah. Simply because people do have some real questions about him.
Hmm. Interesting. Now, I thought it was also interesting to see what Penny Isursa had to say about Lawrence Denny, who's running for Secretary of State. Do you think that's going to hurt Lawrence Denny?
Well, it could among people who know some of the background there. Penny Isursa,
I guess maybe
is the wife of Ben Isursa.
Right.
They very well regarded incumbent Secretary of State. Let me give you a little bit of background there. Ben Isursa has been around the Secretary of State's office since the early 70s, and he's been chief deputy. He was chief deputy there long before he was Secretary of State, and on a day-to-day basis running the office for a very long time. Penny, his wife, has been there just about as long, and she has been. She's worked in the election. She worked in the elections office. She retired finally about the time that he was elected Secretary of State. But she was there for a very, very long time. She was the person over the years that I think in that office that I talked to more than anybody else about, even Ben, about what's going on in terms of what the rules are for campaigns and candidates, and what the status of filing status of candidates and campaigns are, and all of those kinds of things. She's not just the wife of the Secretary of State. She's somebody that on her own is extremely knowledgeable and has very, very deep background in the area. And people who have been around Idaho politics for a good number of years all know her quite well.
For those who missed it, let me just say what she wrote here.
What the quote?
Yes, about Lawrence Denny. Where is Lloyd Benston when you need him? I keep reading or hearing Lawrence Denny comparing himself to former Secretary of State Pete Senarusa. I worked for Pete Senarusa. I knew Pete Senarusa. He was a friend of mine. Lawrence Denny, you're no Pete Senarusa.
I think she got that quote pretty right. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And,
bam.
That was quite an interesting thing for her to say. It's a little hard to imagine that her view and Ben's view would be all that much different.
Yeah.
But and the fact that Ben has not endorsed the Republican in the race.
Yeah.
He hasn't endorsed either candidate, but the fact that he has not endorsed the Republican in the race, I think, says quite a bit by itself. Yeah. But I'd keep a lookout and see whether this might be a precursor to Ben Isursa saying something a little bit in addition to what he said up to this point.
Yeah. Well, Randy, we are out of time. Certainly always fun to talk to you, and we'll catch you next Monday.
We'll talk to you then.
Thank you very much. Randy Staples from Reidenbaugh Press. You can get his subscribe to his update at reidenbaugh.com, and you can hear him here weekly. This time, this station on News Radio 1310 KLIX. And we'll be back after the news. We have Mark Doerr from the Idaho Fish and Game coming in. And welcome back to Top Story, 7360300, always the number to call on this Monday. Welcome back, Jill.
Thanks, Cal. Same to you.
It's only 46 right now.
Wow.
I think it was like 53 when I came to work at 5 o'clock this morning.
Are we supposed to get a cold front in?
I think so, yeah. Supposed
You don't
to
have
cool
news
off.
anymore, though, do you?
I don't, but Benito told me that it's supposed to get up to like 58 tomorrow and a chance of rain.
Oh, no. I hope it's going to be a nice Saturday because I'm doing the farmer's market. It's the last one of the year.
Oh, well.
Please let it be nice.
It seems like whenever you sign up for that, that's when the
it.
bad
Don't
weather
say
hits.
it. Don't say it. Don't put the bad kibosh on it.
Maybe you should consider,
Yeah, nice.
Anyway. We have Mark Doerr with us with Idaho Fish and Game Commission. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to be back again.
Yeah, nice to have you here. So you've been on the board now for what, a year?
Just a little over a year.
How's it going?
Good. Steep learning curve in the first year, as always with any new endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's the most surprising thing about it?
I suppose the overall politics of it, just the number of people involved. It's not just the Fish and Game Department.
Stop. I'm shocked.
Go figure, right?
I'm shocked. Politics? Are you kidding me?
I know. I was involved with the animal shelter a few years ago when we were working on getting it expanded, and I'll tell you what, it's amazing the things that people bring up.
Well,
Lots of interested persons and groups.
That's right.
Dogs are Republicans and cats are Democrats. You did know that, didn't you, Kelly? This is how it works.
That explains. Oh, never
Hello.
mind. I won't even go there.
All right.
Well, so there's a lot to consider on Fish and Game, and Jill asked you probably what's the most important thing that you're working with right now, and you mentioned probably the sage grouse issue.
Probably not the dominant issue at the meetings right now, but coming down the road in the spring of 2015, it'll certainly be a dominant issue.
What is the
depending on which way it
dominant
goes.
issue?
There's ongoing a variety of issues. I wouldn't say any one of them right now is dominant necessarily.
So what issues are there? You want to tell us what you guys are dealing with?
Well, it's everything from season setting, which is, I suppose, the more routine business of the commission. We deal with budgetary issues. Wolves are always an ongoing discussion. Lawsuits that may come about, the sage grouse issue.
What do you think is going to happen with the sage grouse issue? I know we're fighting to keep it from being listed, but do you think we're going to be successful?
Hard to say at this point. I think it could go either way, but I think with Sally Jewell's visit recently, I think that probably gave her a better idea and understanding of all of the players that are involved in that decision, that it's not just simply about the bird. Ultimately it is, but there's a lot of other issues to consider as we go down that road.
Yeah, I know there's been huge impact here in the last few years just with wildfires taking out the habitat.
That seems to be the biggest issue with the birds. Where the habitat is good, we still have good numbers of birds, but you need only look at the agricultural land from Boise to Idaho Falls. There's a large swath of habitat that disappeared many years ago.
Are they also dealing with grazing issues in relation to the sage grouse?
They are. That's certainly one of the discussions. It's part of the governor's task force. One of the items on the list. It's not the only item. There's a variety of issues. I think the last list I saw had 12 different items on it that are all part of the plan to address the sage grouse issue.
I know my theory has been, and I know this is true with a lot of people who I've talked to, if it seems like since we've been cutting back on grazing and more trash, if you want to call it that, has been growing up and not being eliminated from the public lands, that then when that does catch fire, it's a lot worse than it would be if we were able to graze it off. Is that a valid argument?
Well, I think it's one of the arguments. Certainly the other side of the issue is we had far more sheep and cattle on the desert sage grouse areas 100 years ago than we do today, and the sage grouse were flourishing. So I think it's not so much a question of the science, but figuring out what the correct science is to address the issue.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And what kind of a timetable are we looking here? A year or two before they decide it? Isn't it 2015 when there's supposed to be a decision made on this?
Yep, spring of 2015.
Okay, so that's not far away.
It's coming at us quickly.
So just decide if they're going to be on the endangered species list or
Correct.
not. So if they are, how would that affect farmers, Idaho? What would be the effect of that on Idaho?
What the ultimate effect will be, I don't know. We haven't certainly seen what the final result is or would be, but it's going to affect grazing. It'll affect hunting, sportsman's access, ATV use, off-road vehicle use. So it'll be wide-ranging if it happens.
Yeah.
And
It's certainly in the state's best interest to find a solution and keep the bird from being listed.
so what if it was what happens if the sage grouse becomes extinct? What happens to our ecosystem? I'm sure they've talked about that.
Well,
it'd
I
be
don't-
dramatic.
I don't think that's even really been discussed at this point because that's not an issue. It's not something that's coming down the road at us.
So they don't even talk about what could happen if it does go away.
It might not even be endangered at this point.
Okay.
Would that be because it's coming back, or would that be because it's really not as bad as some people think?
No, they know the numbers are down, but I think at this point it's trying to find a solution to habitat preservation so that the birds do have a place to continue to exist.
Yeah. Well, I know too that over time, over centuries, we have lost some species from extinction due to nothing that man had to do with. It's just kind of part of the evolutionary makeup of Earth, it seems like. But nowadays, it seems like if there's a chance something going extinct, and then we get all upset about it, and we stop progress, and we stop farming, and we stop ranching, and we stop all these things that might not even have any bearing on it anyway.
Well, that's why it's important to get the facts up front. I think certainly if you just look at the agricultural land down the valley, an argument can be made that man has had an effect on it. Whether that's the current and ongoing cause remains to be seen.
Yeah. So, are there meetings coming up or anything that common folk like I can find out more about these things and attend, or that you're aware of?
As those meetings come about, then they will be publicized. Right now, I haven't seen a schedule of anything that's determined at this point.
Yeah. But if the decision's going to be made this spring, then there will probably be, I would think, a flurry of them before that happens.
There will be.
Can we comment online? Do you know?
I do not know.
Okay. Because I know a lot of times that. So, if they decide, I'm not sure how this whole thing works, and frankly, maybe you're not either, but if they decide to list, then do they do it immediately, or is there then a rash of public hearings and a year or two down the road they do that, or how does that work? Do you know?
I'm not familiar with it.
Okay.
Not having been through that process before, I don't know.
Yeah. It's kind of baptism by fire for a lot of us.
It is.
Because in Idaho, we've not really seen a lot of this, have we?
We have not. In fact, the department and the state have been sued several times over various animals that other groups thought should be listed as endangered, and the one ironic outcome of that has been that the department typically found out there was more animals than they thought there were.
Which animals were they talking about?
Most recently, the wolverines.
Mm-hmm. But then they used to have a red wolf in Idaho, correct? Like years ago, which is why they introduced wolves, because where did those guys go? Didn't they extinct those from by hunting?
The discussion is that there was a subspecies of wolf that
was smaller
that
and
were
red.
still here. Yeah.
I know Kelton Hatch, who we have in once a month with Idaho Fish and Game. I asked him point blank here a while back, is the gray wolf the species that was here before? And he said yeah. He says that's all part of it.
But there was another one, wasn't there?
Yeah,
Because you hear
the smaller red wolf.
Yeah, the smaller.
Yeah.
And what happened to the smaller red wolf? That's not still around though, is it?
No.
Isn't that why they introduced the gray wolf?
Yeah.
Because that was.
That's my understanding.
Is that
Because
what you understand,
the
Mark?
red wolf got extincted.
It just extincted on its own.
No, it was when cattlemen came to the state.
Right.
They pretty much eliminated it back in the early part of the 20th century.
Well, I think the timber wolf was the dominant animal, and that's what the attempt was to reintroduce.
Yeah.
Yep, the Canadian gray wolf.
Yeah. So, at any rate,
what are they doing with the wolf right now? What's the situation with wolves?
We continue our ongoing management of that animal. It's listed as a big game animal in Idaho, and we continue to manage its numbers so as to not benefit necessarily the wolf, but the other animals as well.
Yeah.
The department management policy is broad-reaching, and it covers all animals. We don't just focus on one, but rather the interaction between the wolf and deer and elk that they prey on.
I know there was a concern among wildlife management people and hunters that the gray wolf, when it was at its peak, there were a lot of game animals in some areas of Idaho that had pretty much disappeared from that area. They attributed that to the gray wolf. So now that we've kind of had these controls, we've lowered the numbers a bit. Have those numbers improved at all?
Of which?
Of the deer and the elk that were, because I know I've heard a lot of people talk about up in central part of the state, there had been a lot more deer and elk up in there before the reintroduction of the gray wolf.
Well, there's no question that in the Middle Fork and the Clearwater, we saw pretty big reductions in the numbers of elk after wolf reintroduction. Some of it was habitat induced. In the Clearwater, the Middle Fork, primarily it was wolf reintroduction. So in those areas where we've had trapping and hunting, there is starting to be some stability and improvement in the number of deer and elk. The Middle Fork is not one of those areas. It's difficult to get to. Wolves are not an easy animal for sportsmen to pursue.
Yeah, yeah.
Are they shooting them out of helicopters?
The state of Idaho?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, because I know they were considering that at one time, which I thought was a little barbaric.
Anytime there's aerial removal of wolves, it's done by the federal government, wildlife services, and normally it's in relation to stock depredations, cattle, sheep.
So that's not happening within our state? Is the federal
not by
doing
the state.
it?
The federal government is.
So they are shooting them by helicopters in the state of Idaho?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's not a state program. It is a federal program.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So there's been talk of the wolf derby. Have you heard about that? I think they were having a wolf derby up around Salmon, which kind of got a lot of controversy going. What's the status of that?
Well, this year I think they've changed the term to a predator derby.
Really?
Yeah, I think you're right.
That always sounds so much better, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Soon it'll be Transformer Derby. What kind of, is it a certain predator or is it just they know it's a wolf?
Coyotes and wolves would be the animal of pursuit.
Yeah. Well, I know.
It's not sanctioned by the state. They're engaging in illegal activity. They're hunting. It's not a lot different than a fishing derby.
Yeah.
Where people go out.
Wait, you say it's illegal? Did you say?
No, it is a legal.
Oh, I thought you said it's illegal. I'm like, are you guys going to do something
no,
about it?
No, it's legal to hunt coyotes
Mark,
and wolves.
start now. Head up there. What are you doing sitting here?
We have Mark Doerr with us with the Idaho Fish and Game Commission. Questions or comments, give us a call, 736-0300. We'll be right back. 736-0300 is the number to call here this morning on Top Story. Welcome back. We have Mark Doerr with Idaho Fish and Game Commission, and we'll get back to Mark here in just a second. But first, I wanted to say Friday's $100 instant winning name is Richard Shotwell.
Oh, Richard Shotwell, which is really Dick Shotwell. He's in Rotary with me.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Dick.
And your $100 word of the day for today is street.
Street.
S-T-R-E-E-T.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to our website, newsradio1310.com, click on Word of the Day, type in street, and then listen tomorrow. And if you hear your name tomorrow and you played the word today, then you win $100. So Dick would have had to have listened Friday on Friday's Word of the Day.
And this is sponsored by the
Happy Landing Restaurant.
My
That's
goodness.
Right.
I'm like, are you going to forget? We just talked about this.
One of my favorite places to eat.
You go there all the time.
I
If
do.
anyone wants to find Kelly, it's either his ham radio basement or Happy Landings restaurant. Those are the two places.
And listen to this. If you are a first-time visitor at the Happy Landing Restaurant and you buy a drink of some sort, and tell them that you heard about it here, they'll give you a free piece of pie.
Oh, this is Kelly's special. You probably came up with this idea. Kelly's like,
No,
I
I
love
didn't, but
pie.
I kind of wish I had.
I love pie. Anyway, go out there,
So,
say hi.
That's right. The Happy Landing Restaurant at the Twin Falls Airport. You don't have to be flying anywhere in order to eat there.
Exactly.
You just go out there and eat like I do all the time. All right, Mark Doerr is with us from the Idaho Fish and Game Commission, and we got a caller. Top Story, you are on the air. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I have a two-part question relating to the grazing and grass and the sage grouse. And the first part is, I've heard that with grazing, this can happen that the animals graze the grass too short, so it leaves bad nesting habitat. The sage grouse need longer grasses to have a good nesting. And the other part is, are there grasses that can be planted to choke out the cheat grass and become more natural and good for the grazing, the grazers, and the birds at the same time?
That's a good question.
Yeah, good questions. What do you say, Mark?
Well, two-part. The first part regarding grass, that is certainly one of the considerations, and that's one of the items primary to the governor's task force on grazing and how that does affect habitat for sage grouse, not only for nesting but inclement weather, the rest of the year, etc. I don't think they have a conclusive answer on that yet. That's part of the ongoing study. With regards to the second one, I don't think there's been much success in holding cheatgrass back. It's a very prolific plant, and
so there's no way to stop this stuff?
Sprouts early and seems to take over anywhere it's given a chance.
Yeah, and dries in about July.
And unfortunately, that's a byproduct of fire. Seems to be the first grass that comes up.
Yeah, it gets to be like gunpowder, too, when it's really dry.
It does.
All right, 7360300, top story. You're on the air with Mark Doerr. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. I also have a two-part question that I'd like to discuss with Mark. One is on trails, and the other one is about wolves. Regarding trails, I'm a hunter, and I'm an Idaho resident, but hunted for probably going on 30 years, and I have a young son that I'm breaking into hunting. He's just turned 14 and trying to get him in the hunting scene. An instance happened to me in the South Hills, actually Sublette area, this hunting season, which is only maybe 2 weeks ago. In that area, there's several trails that have been marked off or no access to ATVs. Probably 95% of the trails that we used to be able to take are no longer accessible. However, there are some that are marked at the trailhead that there are acceptable for ATV travel. You can see right on the trailhead marker, it says approved for trailhead. Well, we went up one of those trails, and it was clearly marked approved for trailhead or for ATVs, motorcycles, and the like. And we were up on the side of the trail, and we were scoping for deer, and this was in the afternoon. And this other ATV came up to us, and it turned out to be Fish and Game, a warden, and he was undercover, and he was up there, and he made the comment, "Did you know you're not supposed to be here? You're not supposed to have ATVs here?" And I told him, "Well, I think you're mistaken, because there are trails that are marked no access, and this one is clearly marked access. ATV is okay, so I don't understand what you're talking about." And he says, "Well, those aren't Fish and Game's rules." And I said, "What are you talking about? Aren't Fish and Game's?" I said, "I know that there's been a lot of controversy over these trails, and several are marked no access or no ATV travel. This one clearly is." And he says, "Well, that's not Fish and Game rules, that's federal government rules." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" And he says, "Well, if you were up here not hunting, you could be on your ATV, but since you're hunting, you can't be on your ATV." So I said, "What do you mean? We're supposed to walk up here on this clearly marked ATV trail?" And he says, "Yes."
Okay, so what's your question real quick, because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, my question is, is that true? I mean, I was totally dumbfounded that Fish and Game has its own set of rules, that even though a trail is marked accessible or okay, that in Fish and Game's rules, that's not.
All right. When we come back from the break, we'll have Mark address that here on Top Story. 7360300. We'll be right back. 7360300 is the number to call here this morning on Top Story. Welcome back. We have Mark Doerr with the Idaho Fish and Game Commission, and we got another caller or two, but we'll have you address the last question that we had before we move on. But before we do that, I have to tell you about the folks at Clearwater Power Equipment. They now have a store in Twin Falls, and of course, this is chainsaw and leaf blower time of the year now.
Well, of course, Halloween's around the corner. How could it not be?
Yeah, well, yeah, especially with those chainsaws.
Yeah. But you can also use them for other things, too.
Yeah, like cutting firewood and
Besides
trimming up
chasing
trees
people,
and stuff like that. So if you're looking for a chainsaw, the Echo chainsaw, the Echo leaf blowers, they have the best warranty in the business with a 5-year residential, 2-year commercial warranty. And if you're looking for a place that knows these things inside and out, then you want the folks at Clearwater Power Equipment. They're at 252 Washington Street. The number is 734-7767, and they would certainly like you to come by. And if you have a big old lawnmower that you don't know where you're going to store it, they can do that for you too. So ask them about that. Clearwater Power Equipment, 252 Washington Street. Okay, Mark, so we had the previous caller who said that the trailhead clearly said that ATVs were fine, so they get back up in there, and then Fish and Game comes and says, no, they can't be here because you're hunting, and so now you can't use the ATV. So any idea what that might be about?
Well, without having an opportunity to look at the signs at the trailhead, that's a difficult one to make an assessment on. Certainly the BLM has the right to open and close trails, and the Fish and Game does in certain areas provide input for areas that they want foot traffic access as opposed to motorized, but they clearly mark those trails. So I'm not sure what happened in that circumstance.
Yeah, I suppose it's possible someone could have stolen a sign or something.
Could have been.
Do hunters have to walk in as opposed to ride in with their ATVs? Is that
in
the
some areas.
law? Okay.
Yeah, in some areas.
Okay,
All right, well.
736-0300. Top story. You're on the air with Mark Doerr.
Good morning.
Hey, thanks. Good morning. Mark, I've got a question. Maybe I came in a little bit late, so maybe you've covered this. But the lynx lawsuit, isn't that really about ending wolf trapping? And I can qualify that by saying that environmentalists bring these suits to Idaho that ask for broad changes, and then they settle for some false compromise at the end of the lawsuit, where the environmentalists give up nothing and hunters and trappers give up something, and then they all walk away calling it a compromise. And in this case, a lot of people think that the false compromise coming down the pipe is going to be a restriction on trap size to prevent non-target catches of lynx during the trapping season. But that trap size restriction is actually going to eliminate wolf trapping. And I wonder if the department is working to address that.
All right, thanks.
That's a good question. Certainly the lawsuit is ongoing at this point, but I can't state unequivocally what the objectives of these groups are. I think you're on the right track. I think they'd like to see broader changes take place, and if they can implement those changes through some other animal, then that's an easy way to get it done. But certainly the Fish and Game Department is a hunting, fishing, and trapping organization, and we are going to defend as best we can any infringements on the rights to do that.
So what is the difference between the lynx size and the wolf size traps? Why would this stop wolf trapping, in case people aren't familiar with this?
Well, the wolf is a larger animal. Really, the wolf trap hasn't been the issue here. It's more been a bycatch animal for those who are trapping bobcats, since they are very similar in size.
So what's the deal? Why would the lynx size matter with the wolf size trap? They're smaller, right?
They are smaller. A wolf trap would theoretically catch more animals, but they don't, because you target those traps for different animals in different places. But ultimately, yes, I think there will be a push to restrict that, and it could have implications for trapping. But the state's going to defend it, and once we know the results of the study and how many lynx there actually are, and whether it's an issue or not, then we'll be able to defend that in court.
Yeah. Now, there haven't been studies on the lynx now, correct? Or there have been?
Limited numbers.
Okay.
The area that's in question is the southern end of the Canadian lynx range. They come across the border into Idaho. Obviously, they don't know borders.
What? We aren't stopping them at the border? What, are you kidding me?
And there's two schools of thought. Perhaps the reason there is bycatch is because there are more lynx, in fact, than we previously thought.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, it's just started. The suit was just filed recently, and
So
I
is it
believe we've
illegal to
got-
trap lynx in Idaho?
It is.
Okay, so.
Yep.
All right. We got to see if we can get this quick caller in before the break. Top story, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning.
I have one more question.
All right.
Mark, can you tell us how many lynx have been caught, say, in the last 5 years versus and balance that against 5 to 6 million trap nights per season in Idaho?
Yeah, it's an extremely low number. My recollection is it's been 3 animals, 2 of which were released unharmed, and the other that the trapper mistook it for a bobcat and did in fact kill it.
A lynx mistaken for a bobcat?
Yeah.
So that would be 3 catches out of 6 million traps set, you might say.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, very low number.
All right. We'll be
Kind of
right
like
back.
voter fraud, but hey, we'll do those laws.
We'll be right back with Mark Doerr from Idaho Fish and Game Commission. 7360300 is the number to call here this morning on Top Story, and we have Mark Doerr with the Idaho Fish and Game Commission. We got like one more segment left here, so any questions or comments, this would be a good time. So I guess there's a couple of new commissioners that'll be coming on board if they are confirmed here soon.
That's correct. The governor appointed commissioner from Region 3, which is southwest Idaho, and Region 5, southeast Idaho. In the last several months, Blake Fisher is the new commissioner from Region 3, and Lane Cleasy from Region 5. Both real quality gentlemen, avid sportsmen, hunters, so they'll be good contributors for the commission for the duration of their tenure after